is in the middle of a merger where they're buying Warner Brothers Discovery. And just for the record, the stockholders do not like the merger. The stock price went down when it was announced how much they were paying. So shareholders tend to feel right now that Netflix is overpaying for Warner Brothers. And I don't know enough to be able to agree or disagree with that assessment. I just know that my Netflix stock went down. My Warner Brothers stock had gone up. I sold my Warner Brothers stock though as soon as the merger rumors started. I just went ahead and sold because I think the stock went up 70, 80% or something. I didn't want to stick around to see how the story ended. I just took my little 70% ROI and walked away. But I've been watching it closely, and it's really interesting. So Netflix they just really have this amazing algorithm. I compare them to TikTok, where you just got these companies that just have figured out the secret sauce, and nobody else knows it, and everybody else is trying to figure out what they're doing, and it hasn't happened yet. But anyway, so this Diddy documentary is out there, and so one of the things I decided to do on Instagram was I started this. My Instagram is Dr. Boyce Finance, so I started this little series I called No Diddy, and and what I wanted to do was explore just all the economic lessons behind the Diddy situation. I kind of believe Diddy. My personal conspiracy theory about Diddy is that he's a federal agent because I believe he's a mafia. I believe that there's a high probability that he's mafia connected, like so many other people in the music industry, going back to the Clive Davises and people like that. And there's a long history. If you don't know this, there's a long history of the CIA working with the mafia. Like there's a lot of people that have reasonable arguments to believe that the mafia was that they assisted the CIA in eliminating Dr. King, that they were involved even in things like the Bay of Pigs invasion, that they were definitely connected to the whole like flooding of black community with crack cocaine and all that. And so I think that if you look at Diddy's behavior, this whole idea of having these crazy parties to get people to take drugs and do weird stuff with each other, and then filming it all, this obsession with filming it all, I think that sounds like a government operation. That sounds like blackmail, systematic blackmail, just like Epstein, same thing, right? So anyway, with this documentary though, watching it's really fascinating. Also because there's so many economic lessons. Because one of the things that the Epsteins and the Diddy's understand is that, and maybe we can call him Diddy Epstein. Maybe that'll be his nickname, Diddy Epstein. So one thing that Diddy Epstein understands very well is that money is power, and they understand that money isn't just powerful in terms of forcing people to do things. Money's so powerful that it doesn't force you to do anything. Actually, they don't have to force you to do anything. It seduces you. Right? Money isn't just it's not just a brute force object where make people do things. You seduce them. Because people let their guard down when they see someone that has money. When a woman meets a man that has money, she instantly thinks he's a great man and a great catch, and she tells her girlfriends, "Girl, he's a surgeon." And the girl's like, "Oh my God, how'd you get you a surgeon?" Well, anybody said, "Well, how do you get you a good man?" They're like, "How'd you get you a surgeon?" Right? And so ultimately, money it does it all through business, things like that. People will sit next to a billionaire and say, "He's a great guy. He's really." And why is he a great guy? Well, because he wrote a check to your foundation, your company, your whatever, and you attribute all these other personality traits that he hasn't quite earned. And so money gives you a shortcut to trust. And this is what I think was going on with Diddy. So I said, it'd be fun in a typical like Dr. Boyce weirdo, obnoxious sort of way to do a little series that I called No Diddy. Because there's literally probably about 30 economic lessons in that whole documentary that you could pull out. In fact, let me ask you this. If Diddy didn't have money, fame, and power, he wouldn't would he be interesting? In fact, take away, let's keep the fame and the power, but let's say he had no money, right? If he's famous and he's on TV, but he has no money to help people actually become rich and famous. Let's say he can help you become famous, but he won't help you become rich. I think that would significantly reduce his power, right? And remember, Diddy was celebrated by the black community. He was seen as a an icon. He was seen as a leader. He was standing next to Barack Obama telling black people who to vote for, if you recall. And I'm gonna tell you, I'm like Catherine. I never really liked what the energy of what I saw. I'm talking about going back 30, 25 years. Maybe not 30. 30 years ago, you have the Tupac thing. I didn't connect Diddy to the killing of Tupac, until maybe about 5 years later. But really, you go back to maybe 2000, 2001. I didn't understand Diddy because he's this, guy running around dancing all the time, and it represented the silly side. It represented the racist history of America, sort of identifying the black man as a little boy, a little girl, or a clown, right? The black men are more accepted if we show up. Hey, hey, boss, hey, shucking and jiving or whatever. The minstrel show. Minstrel shows have always been very popular. Even Judy Garland, who was in The Wizard of Oz, right before Judy Garland did her Wizard of Oz film, she actually did a minstrel show. You can go look it up. She put on the all the makeup and the lipstick, and she said, "Mammy, Oz is from the South." Right? And did all of that. Like that was literally the role she did right before The Wizard of Oz. Go look it up. Go look it up. Right? So that minstrel show continues and people love it. And that's why, people like that will always be wealthy. And so here's something I want to introduce you to in terms of one of the first economic lessons you can get from the Diddy documentary. Like I said, it's all about money. It's all about money. These women chasing guys down because they have money and all that. It's such a, like, as a finance professor, my brain just starts tingling because I'm seeing all these economic lessons everywhere in this film. And one of the economic lessons that I want to share with you, the first one of many that I think I want to bring up over time, is something called superstar economics. Superstar economics is a specific research theory that was developed by a guy named Rosen in 1981. And it says that extreme wealth can concentrate influence. And it creates like almost like a winners take all kind of market where you have a small number of people that control everything. These people become the gatekeepers. For a lot of people that went into the hip hop music industry, Diddy and Jay-Z were seen like God and Jesus. They were seen as like how people say the only way to get to God is to go through Jesus. Well, for a lot of people, the only way to really make it in the hip hop industry was to go through Diddy or Jay-Z, kind of the twin towers of the hip hop industry. And why were they the twin towers? Well, because they had the access and the power. Another person that fit that description is a guy that I worked with that I actually like is Russell Simmons. Russell Simmons as well. He worked with Andre Harrell, who also worked with Diddy. It's all kind of like this really oddly incestuous ecosystem. Some of those people in that space I will talk to. Some of them I want nothing to do with. I never wanted anything to do with Diddy. Dr. Claude Anderson went to visit Diddy one time, and Diddy did a whole lot of yapping about how he loved Powernomics and he was going to do this and do that. And of course, he didn't do anything. And I explained to Dr. Anderson, I said, yeah, you got a lot of people that just are fast talking Negroes. They're going to tell you all this stuff, but they're not going to follow through. You want to, people of substance are the ones you want to listen to. And so anyway, but I can say I worked with Russell Simmons, and from what I saw, he was incredibly honorable and he really helped us to achieve goals on incarceration. That's something that's really close to my heart because I've seen too many good people go to prison for too long and good families get destroyed by the mass incarceration epidemic, which hurts the black community more than you think, right? So anyway, Russell was just an awesome guy to work with, and I think we were able to really achieve some results. Diddy I wouldn't talk to, but anyway, in that space you had these figures, these sort of tentpole figures that became sort of the beacons and the icons in the black community. Another term you may have heard me use before is the term of the Negro manager, not the black leader, the Negro manager. Their goal is to they're showered with wealth and power. Not a lot of power, but just enough power where you can flex on black people. Mike Epps, I haven't met Mike Epps. I want to meet him. I know a couple people that know him, and so at some point I have a feeling I'm going to bump into Mike and talk to him again. I saw him at my good friend Willie D's event, and maybe I'll see him this year. And Mike Epps says something really profound that I love. I love what he's seeking to do. I love the fact that he's talking to people like Brother Nuri Muhammad and D1 and really trying to use that influence in a positive way. I respect that so much. And one thing Mike Epps talked about was he said, the white man that controls everything is never going to give you enough wealth and power to really flex on him. He's not going to give you enough to shape his community, but he'll give you enough to flex on your own community, right? You can go to another black person and you can say, look at me, look at my car, look at my house, look at how much money I make. And black people will be like, oh my God, you're a hero, you're an icon, right? But you go into the white community, there are people like that all around. I mean, you have a guy like a Mark Zuckerberg who could find your wealthiest black celebrity and buy that person 20 times over and do it and still have plenty of money left over, or Elon Musk. When you compare $500 billion to a billionaire, That's if you take 500 billionaires and put them in a room, that's one Elon Musk, right? So that's a different tier of power, a different tier of reach and influence, which typically is connected to access to capital, control of banking systems, things like that. They literally have the ability to print their own money. And so to some extent, they become the economic gods, and we just become their subjects, their little pawns, right? So typically the way you oppress a group of people and control them is you will find a couple of people that you can pull out. It's like the Hunger Games. The Hunger Games, if you watch the movie The Hunger Games, you had the wealthy, the elite, and then you had the poor, which was the masses. And to control the masses, they would grab a couple of little symbolic representatives. Symbolism is very big in controlling a group of people. So they would grab these little symbolic representatives that are in the Hunger Games, and they would parade them around. And because what they're doing is they were selling hope on a rope, like a piece of dope. They were literally offering hope to the people to say, look, if you behave, if you follow the system, if you do what you're told, if you go to school, go to college, get a good job, and go to work every day, then maybe one day you too can be as powerful and as successful as this person that you're looking at on stage. So, long story short, what you end up seeing is this happening in hip hop all the time. Diddy and Jay Z were those two guys. I knew a young lady one time who literally told me that she went to college and she did not study her freshman year. And I said, why didn't you study? She said, because in my mind, I knew that I was going to go into the music industry, meet Diddy or Jay-Z. They were going to be so impressed with me that they were going to offer me a job on the spot, and I was going to go to New York and work with them. And I said, that was your main plan? She said, yeah, that was my main plan. So these dreams are very powerful for young people. And what I think is really interesting is I think that it's very important that if you get a young child that you influence and you give them a dream, at least give them a realistic dream. I think dreaming big is important, but dreaming in a way that's just not probable is not healthy. Dreaming about winning the lottery is not the best way to go about your life, not the best use of your time. And I was in the car this morning taking Tater to school, and Taylor, her name's Taylor, I call her Tater. And we were talking, and I said, Taylor, I said a lot of people don't understand that the easiest way to make money is the stock market. I said, I was talking to her about, I said, Netflix was going to buy Warner Brothers, and the deal is going through. That was my way of kind of hooking her in because I know everybody watches Netflix. And she said, "Oh, so they're gonna own all the Warner Brothers stuff." I said, "Yeah, they are." I said, but the shareholders didn't like it. The Netflix stock went down, Warner Brothers stock went up though. So I said, it's almost like when two people start dating each other and they announce they're getting married. There's some people who say congratulations, but then there's some people who cringe and say, "Oh, that's such a bad idea." Right? So marriage isn't the devil. Marriage isn't good, and marriage isn't bad. Marriage is just a thing. It's a vehicle for connection, and therefore if the connection is a bad connection, then it can be just as bad as it is good, right? So I was explaining that was my way of sneaking in a conversation about stocks and investing in mergers and acquisitions. She's 15, so I think I lost her attention after about 5 minutes. But one thing that we did talk about was I said, when you think about life, I said, the unfortunate truth about America is most people are never really taught how to really make money and where the money really is. I said, the cool thing about owning stock is that you can go to sleep and wake up the next day and have more money in your bank account because something changed. I said, most of these people out here, they're on their way to work. And I said, and working is okay. I said, but I remember one thing my father said to me when I was 17 that stuck with me. He said, boy, he said, you better get your act together because one day you're going to wake up at 35 and then wonder where all your time went. And for whatever reason that stuck with me, and I was like, oh, I better get it together. And then I told her, I said, and then out of the blue, I was 35, and then I was 45, and now I'm almost 55. I said, where did the time go? I said, it's very shocking, to watch that happen. I said, but here's the thing. I said, I said, so a lot of people are never ever taught like where to really make money, the easiest ways to make money. I said, one of the hardest ways to make money is to get up and go to work for that money every day. And I said, also, I said the other big thing too is what really sucks is when you have to work and do something you don't enjoy. I said, I said one thing about me and your mom that I can say that we can give to you is we like our jobs. I said if you went up to us and said, "Hey, would you do your job for free?" The answer would be yes. We just love, love, love what we do. I said, unfortunately, most people can't say that. If you ask most people on their way to work, if you were getting no paycheck, would you still be on your way to work? Most of them would say no. And I said, that's not where you want to be. I said, I said, I want to show you how you can be immersed in something that you love every day, because all you then have to do is figure out how to pay your bills. You don't even have to get rich. You just have to survive. You have to have enough money to pay your bills, right? I said, because most people don't go to work because they're getting rich. I said, they go to work because they're surviving, right? And this is not something that I want to see happen to you. I don't want you to inherit a struggle. I want you to inherit prosperity. I want you to inherit happiness. I want you to inherit a life of no limitations, right? And that's what I want to give to you. Now, by that time, she's a teenager, so she's her brain's everywhere else. I'm really planting seeds in the subconscious at that point. And then I went back to the word preparation, which is really slang for investing. I said really, I said, you know how I would say preparation is the key to success. I said preparation literally would give you 99% of what you want in this world. So I said, like when you do a dance competition, I said, think about it. If you're not prepared and you haven't been practicing, you're not going to do very well, right? She said, no. I said, yeah, you're going to feel bad. It's going to be stressful, right? It's going to be hard. I said, but think about when you prepare, when you practice hard and you did all the work in advance and you show up and you're ready and you went through the rehearsal and the routine. I said, you're going to have a great experience, right? I said, life is really a lot like that. I said, a lot of people struggle financially because they're just not prepared. Like nobody prepared, nobody made a plan, nobody helped them get any wealth when they were a child, nobody left them any inheritance. Everybody's thinking about themselves or thinking about the moment. Nobody's making a plan. And I said, that's really, really, really sad to me, right? And so the other thing I said to her was, I said, I was thinking about kids, and I said, I got a message from my friend who said I have to rush my mother to the hospital, and it's really hard because I'm the only child and I have to do everything. And I said, that makes me think about kids, and I think that we when we think about kids as like this burden, this extra challenge. I said, actually, you think about how much pressure it is when you have just like one kid, and then somebody gets older and then that one kid has to carry the whole load, right? And I started thinking about, like, even with my father's dealing with stuff, and me and my siblings had a family meeting last night to kind of talk about it. Some of you who were there last night, we did a training on how to be the perfect AI investor, and so at the end I had to go because I had to go to this family meeting for my dad. And it's like, but there's three of us. There's three of us, right? So if I get a text message saying, "Oh, he's going through this," or he needs help with that, my sister, who's a medical doctor, sometimes she'll take the text. Or if somebody says, "Oh, you got to go check the finances and make sure this is in order," my brother, the Cornell grad, he'll hop in and handle that. Or there'll be another situation where they're tired and they're busy, and I'll jump in. "Oh, don't worry, I'll go see daddy. I'll go spend time with him," right? And so you have that group effect. That is a form of wealth. That really is a form of wealth. I want to make sure you understand that. Like, that's wealth, because that's an exercise in diversification, an exercise in preparation. In all those years, our parents were frustrated. They could have been living their best life. They could have been twerking. They could have been at the club meeting new chicks. They could have been out getting high. They could have been living their best life. They could have put all their energy into their career and said, "I don't have time for these damn kids because I got to focus on my career." And all these benefits that they now receive would not exist, right? Because we wouldn't exist, or maybe we would exist, but we would not be a well-managed asset, right? A child is an asset, but an asset must be managed to achieve maximum value. So if they had neglected and ignored us, and I was, out in the street trying to find crack, instead of spending time with my parents, I wouldn't be the asset that I could be as the kid who was disciplined and trained and stuff like that. And I'm gonna tell you the truth, and I'm gonna get back to the Diddy thing in a minute, but y'all know what I do. I do a stream of consciousness on wealth, and all these things relate to wealth, and I hope that you see it. Let's pause for a minute. I need to ask, are y'all seeing the wealth here? Do you understand how this relates to wealth? Can you give me that yes? I need that validation right now because I'm feeling a little bit insecure about all my rambling. Okay. All right. So thank you. I'm glad. Okay, so here's the thing, right? I just processed this, right? My parents were old school and they were conservative. They're conservative people. And the benefit of their conservatism was they had kind of just like this simple philosophy, which was like, don't go out here, don't be out here doing stupid shit. Like don't make dumb decisions. If you and your white friends go and rob a bank or decide to, fight a police officer and you go to jail, you will just be sitting in jail. If you blow all your money and you end up going broke, then you're just gonna sit there and have to be broke. And that was seen as maybe a little harsh, right? Because there's so many kids whose parents were softer on them, who would save them from themselves and everything else. They wreck the car, the parents go buy a new car, and they just weren't built like us. We just kind of understood we have a responsibility to ourselves and to the family, and that really pays off long term. It really made a massive difference long term. I'm reflecting on that. And so one of the things, and I'm not here to tell you what kind of parent to be. Lord knows I am not qualified to be out here giving you no parenting lessons. I can only share what I've seen. But I want to encourage those of you who are, if you don't like what you're seeing around you, there's no reason you have to be like everybody else. If you feel like, oh, instinctually, okay, this ain't right, this ain't working, I'm gonna have to go over here and do it this way. I encourage you really do that because you're probably onto something, and you have to have the courage to explore that idea that you have that's different from the norm. Because Lord Jesus, there's so much effort to propagandize and systematize and indoctrinate people into ways of thinking that have proven to be highly ineffective. I mean, look at all the research that's out here right now that's talking about number one, all the processed food we were trained to eat as kids, how it's giving everybody cancer. Those parenting techniques that they told everybody they had to pursue in the 90s producing a bunch of weak ass kids who who have a nervous breakdown at the drop of a hat. They told everybody to go to college and ignore things like trade schools, and so now you have a bunch of people with college degrees who can't get jobs and are buried under student loan debt, when really they'd be better off if they knew how to build a house or do some plumbing or whatever, something to pay some bills. They trained everybody to go get jobs, and that's been proven consistently to be a great way to be broke. And I'm not even going to talk about personal relationships. Family is thrown out the window. Marriage, relationships, all that is just kind of seen as silly and old fashioned, and individualism has been sort of heightened above collectivism. Individualism has become the thing. Like, I'm going to do what's best for me all the time, no matter how it affects other people around me. Even your therapist tells you that all that matters is how you feel about stuff, and screw everybody else. And I think there's a healthy balance to that. I just do. Because sometimes you need people, you need groups, you need a team. And if you're out here in this world trying to do everything by yourself, trying to pay all the bills by yourself, trying to figure out life by yourself, trying to be secure and financially secure by yourself, it's not it becomes really difficult, and I go back to that example I mentioned earlier about the only child. You had the parent that had one child. No disrespect to those who did. I'm not judging you. I mean, I had one child, so I'm talking about myself really. That parent that has like the only child, and then the parent gets sick, and the only child has to sacrifice their whole entire life to take care of this person, when it might have been easier if they had three siblings they could call. um you know uh, I could tell you more stories, but I'm not going to tell you. But I got to tell you this real quick. I dated this lady a long time ago who's, I'm not going to say her name because I don't want to be mean, but it was a long time ago. She was a little weird, a little crazy. She was in the military. She was a sharpshooter, and I was really worried after we broke up because I thought she was going to come kill me because she was real jealous like that. It was weird. Like, it was one of those, like, you get off the elevator and she's like, "I saw you looking at that girl," and I'm like, "What girl?" "That girl. You know what you was doing. You looking at." What? I didn't know there was a girl. Wait, which girl are you talking to? It was like she was like that. She was just cool. Anyway, she had a mother that okay, so she was the youngest, and she had these three siblings. And I don't know what the hell those siblings were doing, but they were all the older siblings. She was super smart, and she got this amazing scholarship where literally she could go to any university in the country she wanted to go to. They said, "Pick your school, we'll pay for it." And she had good grades, so she could have gotten to Harvard, whatever. And her mother used to basically tell her, like, "Hey, if you leave, I might die, and I need you to be here to take care of me." So this poor girl is in high school working the graveyard shift to help pay the bills in the house in high school. And then she can't leave. She stays in her home state to go to the state school because her mother was like, "If you leave, I might die." And I remember thinking about that and saying, "My God, like, this is so unfair to this poor girl." And maybe that's why we can give her grace for being a little bit crazy. I did get away from her though. When you meet the crazy person, you got to leave. You got to move on. But I was 22, and when you're 22, your brain ain't working quite right. And so anyway, I just remember seeing that, and I remember asking myself or noticing two things. One was the amount of unfair pressure that was on her. She's young, her life is just starting, and she has to dedicate all of her time and energy to taking care of this older person who, unfortunately, like a lot of us, had spent her whole life eating all the wrong foods and had gotten the diabetes, got her foot cut off, and was really struggling with her health. That was sad. Then number two, I remember thinking, where the hell are your siblings? Like, what are they? They're the older siblings. Aren't they supposed to step in and say, "No, no, we got it. We'll take care of mama. You go to school." That was weird to me. And that was actually the beginnings of when I would start noticing how family structure and those early choices make a big difference in how things play out long term. So everything's an investment, everything is wealth, everything's about preparation. Preparation really is the key to success in almost every area of your life, 99% of the time. So let's circle back and let's talk about Diddy again, though. Let's go back to superstar economics. So the Diddy documentary shows that this man had enormous amounts of power largely because he had money and fame, and that made people automatically believe him. So you have numerous stories of people who say, "Yeah, I met Diddy, I met Puff. It was a dream come true. He invited me to come live in his mansion. One night at a party, I went to sleep and I woke up and for some reason my butt was sore." There was a guy who said that. He said I wake up. He said sometimes I wake up and there'd be women in the bed, and sometimes I wake up and he would be in the bed and I would be sore for some reason, and I never knew why. Right? Like this is the nightmare people were living. Right? And so, the thing is that this all links to that superstar economics theory, and this is also a key to oppression. Remember, Diddy wasn't just a famous rich guy; he was a tool. He was a tool for those that wanted to manage and control the black community. That's why he was the head of that whole vote or die campaign. It's like, okay, if we get this guy to tell people what to do, they're all going to do it because most people don't think for themselves; they just follow whatever the leader is. So superstar economics sort of creates a scenario. It is used as a tool of oppression. It's used all around the world to allow one group of figureheads or one individual to have a lot of wealth and power so they can kind of dole out crumbs to people and hope to people that are looking to get access and opportunity. And it all has to sort of go through that one person or that one small group of people. And that's pretty much it. And also, the other thing, too, that you should know is that power can amplify compliance. So, psychology studies on authority, there's one by Milgram in 1963. It shows that people follow the demands of high status figures, even if it's against their own interest. So when you meet Diddy and you see this guy of high status and he says, "Hey, I need you to jump," and you're going to say, "How high?" because you want to impress and please Diddy. For whatever reason, that's really important because he has lots of power and that can really amplify your compliance, even if he has you doing something that you know is wrong, that you know that your mama would not be proud of you for doing. Also, there's the idea that wealth can create dependence, right? So there's economic coercion, and the research shows that when one person has the resources, others will compromise boundaries to maintain access. So, for example, when I was sitting on the phone with Kanye West and Kanye started acting like an asshole, I remember saying, "I don't want to talk to you anymore. I gotta go." And I remember thinking to myself, I told my wife, I said, I said, "I really don't care about not talking to this guy anymore, even though I know how much money he has. I saw his numbers. He showed me he showed me the numbers. He has real money." And I said it would be really great to support what we're doing in the Black Business School, but not at this expense. And I told him, I said, "Look, I don't have as much money as you, but I have enough money to be free of this bullshit, and I'm not going to talk to you on the phone anymore." So basically, when you are economically independent, you have the ability to decide what spaces you want to be in and who you want to deal with. When you are economically struggling, when you are desperate financially, you'll find people that will bend and fold and do whatever in order to maintain access to something or someone. It might be in a bad relationship where you'll see women that'll deal with a terrible man because they literally cannot afford to live without this man. I knew a kid when I was young whose mother was thinking about taking her. She tried to take her own life, and she did because she sacrificed her whole life for this man. To get him through dental school. And then when they got in their 40s, he fell in love with a 20-something-year-old and ran off with her. And so she was stuck in this suburban life in this big house with kids in private school with no money to pay for any of it. And I remember feeling really bad for her. But it's really funny, like one weird thing about white folks. And not all white folks do this. I can't generalize, but it was my experience. Is like, you ever been around white folks that just tell you all their business? Like I remember sitting there as a 17-year-old thinking, why is this 40-year-old lady telling me all about her marriage? Like that was I did that did not happen in my I knew nothing about my parents' marriage. I knew nothing about any other women or any issues they had. I didn't know it because we didn't do that. Right? But you go to your white friend's house and they'll be like, "Yeah, and Bobby gave me an STD, and after that happened, I just was done with him." And I'm like, "What? No, he didn't." Right? It was they just let it all out. So this lady was telling me but you know what? I appreciate it though. It was a good life lesson. I was like, okay, I don't want to end up like that. Or, ooh, I didn't know this happened to people. Right. And so to some extent, even though it was weird, it was really helpful information. I actually am a fan of adults telling young people real stories because that you can learn from those stories. That's the best way to learn. So I'd say it's okay to tell, point things out. And my dad would tell me real stories about other people. He wouldn't talk about him and my mama, but he would talk about other people and say, yeah, he used to be the star of the football team. Now he's on drugs. You don't want to be like that, do you know? Well, then stay away from drugs. It'll be stuff like that, right? So anyway, another thing too is there's also something called social capital, and that's really big in the Black community. Social capital, there's something that's where some people enjoy the idea of being popular. There was an influencer I was talking to who said, Dr. Woods, I don't understand. I get 100,000 views on every video, and I get lots of clicks and likes and shares, and I don't have any money. And I said, well, I said, because what you're doing is you're focusing on getting lots of attention. For whatever reason, you enjoy the attention, but you haven't developed a business model around what you're doing with your social media presence. That's why you have all like people think that being famous means you automatically are rich. I said, no, what makes you rich is the business model. What is your business model? And she couldn't tell me the business model. I said, okay, there you go. Like your model is I'm gonna do things that are interesting so that I get lots of attention, but attention really doesn't pay the bills, right? Attention is a valuable asset. It's a commodity for sure, but it does not pay the bills. So there's something about being socially accepted and trendy that really seems to really impact our community. Like, how you see people that are like, they'll do goofy TikTok dances that don't even make any sense, or because they're just trying to follow whatever trend is out there so they can be seen. Like I just want to go viral and I want to hit the algorithm. So the algorithm says stand on one foot and hold a Pepsi and bang it up against your head while you're looking at your child. And like people will do that. Like people will just do whatever goofy trend is out there. And I just decided, man, screw that crap. I'm not doing that. I'm not that. You look stupid right now. I'm not interested. No, no. I'm good enough that looking stupid on my own. I don't need your help to look any stupider than I already look. So anyway, there's studies on things they call network effects, which show that basically powerful people can weaponize their connections, their opportunities, and they can gatekeep. So what happens a lot of times is in Hollywood and in the entertainment space, which is where they really control Black folks and turn them into something that we don't recognize anymore, is they're always under this constant threat that if you deviate from the rules, if you don't do what you're told, if you set your agenda and not follow their agenda, then you'll be blackballed and you'll never work again and blah blah blah, right? So this constant threat of blackballing is pretty big. I think that that's overplayed a lot. I dealt with the threat of being blackballed when I was in academia. I was told if I keep doing all this radical pro-black stuff that no university would want to hire me and all that, and it made me nervous. I was like, "Ooh, I don't want that to happen." But then I was like, "Man, screw you! Like I got a PhD, I can figure it out." Right? So when you just confront the fear, and also this is why every Black child should know how to start a business by the age of 12, because people who know how to start businesses know how to spot opportunities. They know how to create possibilities. They're not looking for someone to give them an opportunity. They manufacture opportunities. Instead of looking for money, you're printing money. So ultimately, you don't want to get a connection to the plug. You don't even want to be the plug. You want to be the source that others are plugging into. Do you understand, right? You don't want to connect to the plug, and you don't want to be the plug. You want to be the thing that the plug is looking for so that they can say, I'm plugged into this person. And that's real. That's where power is. That's a real power source. So but the problem is that real power has to be manufactured through things that are not so popular, like consistency, discipline, investment, and hard work. It takes time to really build true power. If you look at the true power, for example, the NFL, we go back to the beginning where you could buy the Chicago Bears for $500. Somebody put decades into building true meaningful power right there. They didn't try to take a 6 month shortcut. They didn't try to go get a record deal. They didn't try to, sign one big contract and have everything changed in their life, overnight. No, they did that work required to build a true meaningful capital base. And when the power is in the capital base, the power is in the capital base. The power is in the capital base. If you train children on even knowing what a capital base looks like, how to build a capital base, and I'm not just talking about financial capital, I'm talking about social capital, intellectual capital, putting in the work, building brick by brick, choop, 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 building a base. When you have a base of operations, that is where you are able to establish what real power actually looks like. So I hope that that makes sense to you. Someone that said something about ringing. Is there ringing? Is there a noise? Is it? Someone says stop the ringing. Am I ringing something? Is that? Can you hear me okay? Let me know. Give me a quick yes if you can hear me. I want to make sure everybody can hear me okay. All right. Um, Quick reminder, don't forget the Black Wealth calendar. You can get the Black Wealth calendar now. If you order it now, you should get it before Christmas. And maybe I think they make great Christmas gifts. You can buy a bunch and give them away and stuff like that. So you can go to blackwealthcalendar.com. That's blackwealthcalendar.com and get a calendar. Also, we have these cool flashcards for AI. I don't know if anybody else has AI agents or AI flash or AI tools for your kids, but we're big on that. You guys know we have the AI Empire Society, AIEmpireSociety.com. I did a training last night on how to be the perfect AI investor, and that was a lot of fun. And Cass says, be careful with AI. Yes, be careful with it, but don't run away from it. That's so being careful with it means knowing it and owning it, right? You want to know it, how to use the tools, but you also want to own it. You want to invest in the companies that are going to make the money. So that's what we did last night. Is I spent almost about 2 hours actually, or maybe it was an hour and a half, and I was going through basically the whole AI ecosystem and all the different ways to invest in AI and position your portfolio in a certain way. If you want to replay, just go to AIEmpireSociety.com. I encourage you to take a look. One membership, you can bring your whole family in. And Micah Smith runs AI Empire Society. She's our AI expert, along with Christian Kegler. Christian Kegler does a lot of stuff on the content side. Micah just kind of knows everything, and she actually did a music video that's played on the radio right now. It was as good as anything Beyonce or Sierra or whoever could create. So she's using AI in a creative way. And the thing that people don't know about AI is they think that AI is replacing artists, and it's not. It's just it does require artists to pick up on the willingness to consider a new skill or add new people to their team, but it doesn't replace humans, right? Like you have singers like Kirby. I hear Paige says sing Kirby sing. I don't. I think her name is Kirby. I assume her name is Kirby, and she's really really good. I love listening to her music. Victory Boyd, and they're humans and they sing and it's really good. But then you throw in AI. I've seen people like Micah Smith use AI in a super creative way and create something where you're like, wow, this is really, really good. It would be hard. It would take millions of dollars for a human being to make a video like that. And some of the leading music artists on the planet right now are AI artists. And people don't know how they feel about that. But the thing about AI that what it does is it just reminds you that most of what we represent is data. It can be defined by data. It's signaling. Like if I talk to you and you hear my voice come into your ear, you're picking up a signal, right? And if you could not pick up the signal, then I'd be talking and it would just look like that. It would mean nothing to you. But you pick up the signal and you process the signal. So you seeing me, this is all digital. This is, you're not in the room with me. You can't physically touch me. But this is digital, right? So AI is fascinating because it's really captured that. And so what AI has been able to do is go into country music, study all the songs and the different artists, and say, what does the perfect country music voice sound like? And literally create this cocktail of a human that has never existed in all of human history. And some would say that you're stealing and you're copying, from humans, which they are, right? For sure. But every artist I know got inspiration from somebody else. I watched a really popular artist named NLE Chopper, or I think he calls himself NLE the Great now. I don't know if he's Chopper or the Great, but I kind of watch him just so I can see what 22-year-olds are thinking about. And he did a video where in one scene he's dressed like Michael Jackson. The next scene he's dressed like Tupac, right? So he's getting all this inspiration from other artists. So I think that that's always happened. I think the challenge with AI, what makes AI a problem, which I understand it, is that AI is just really good at that. AI is like the student who's just taking notes and knows everything and has an IQ of 10,000, and they're able to pull together all these references in a way that no human being really could. So that's what's going to make AI fascinating. And And what's interesting is that this is nothing compared to what AI is going to look like 5 or 10 years from now. So I highly encourage you to consider investing in some of these AI companies because it's going to be pretty massive when it finally arrives. All right. So anyway, AI Empire Society is the website you can go to if you want to join our AI group and check out the training that I did this week on AI investing. But then also, if you go to drboycebooks.com, that's where you can get the flashcards for your kids. We have AI flashcards. So drboycebooks.com. All right, one more thing about Diddy, in terms of how the wealth and power likely suck people in, is there's also research that shows there's research on something called parasocial influence, and it shows that people tend to excuse harmful behavior when they admire a celebrity status. And that's easy to understand. You know, if a famous person that you admire does something stupid or something mean, people are more likely to make excuses for the celebrity. I remember I remember when I still I still remember when I had a debate with Michael Eric Dyson at Brown University, and it was right when he was fighting with Cornel West. And I remember I liked Michael, but we were debating hip hop and whether or not artists should be responsible for their words. And and at that time, the biggest artists were, artists like Lil Wayne and stuff like that. And and I remember thinking about this. I was happy to do the debate because Brown University paid him more than me because he's Michael Eric Dyson and I'm not. But I got a lot of money. I think they gave me like $10,000, and that was a lot of money just to go talk, right? So, so anyway, so I was very happy, and I was scared to death to debate Michael Eric Dyson because that was a guy I just always admired for so many years. I still remember the first time I ever saw him on BET, and he's just flowing, and he just communicates in such a fluid way, and I just love it. But in the debate, I kind of felt I was like I feel like you're kind of full of shit right now. I love you, but this is bull crap. How can you? So when I did my section of the debate, they said, "Well, do you want to go first or second?" And he said he wants to go second. He's the elder, so I went first, and that was strategically intelligent. He could hear what I had to say and then rebut that afterward. And I just went up there and I said, the best way for me to explain these lyrics is to ask simple questions. So what I did was I found like a Lil Wayne song. And in this song, Lil Wayne was rapping about how he would steal your girlfriend, make her into his prostitute, make her go out and steal for him and kill for him, and then murder her, like chop up her dead body and send her dead body back to her ex-boyfriend. And that's all I did was I just read the lyrics. And I said, does anybody in here think that these lyrics are healthy for a child to listen to growing up and have them come out of the mouth of someone they admire, someone they look up to, someone that many of them try to emulate? I said, rappers, I said, a lot of these kids in the hood, they dress like their favorite artists. They get the dreads like Lil Wayne. The tattoos, same, uh, the Bernard Arnault, who sells luxury products, he loves to pay rappers to promote his stuff because they know that whatever the artists are wearing that the kids are gonna wear. So if the artists sorry, if the kids are gonna wear what the artists are wearing, you mean to tell me they're not gonna think what the artists are thinking? Like, are we really that naive? Are we really that naive to think that this does not connect to our culture and our community? Are we working that hard to remain blind to this? And so the debate was a little frustrating to me because that was like debating that 2 plus 2 is 4. And I felt that this goes back to what I was saying earlier, parasocial influence, that people will excuse harmful behavior when they admire the status of the people they're talking about. So the difference between me and Mike is that Mike, he's always been in the in crowd of the bougie Negroes, and you have proximity to these celebrities, and I was invited into that crowd. I just didn't like it. I like being in spaces of substance. I don't care. Flashy stuff doesn't is not of interest to me. I like substance. And then if you have flash on top of the substance, that's interesting too. I respect that. But a lot of times you have flash and emptiness, right? Empty souls that just look good and sound good, but they're not good. And so he's up there. I think for him it was probably difficult because he was talking about some of his friends. These were people that he actually knew. And his whole argument was like, oh, it's just creative expression and and freedom of speech and everything else. And I was like, I know you've read some psychology books. I know that you understand what influence looks like. I know you get this. Like you're a smart man. So what's happening here is sometimes we drop our guard or we lower our standard and our values because we want to be one of the cool kids. Right? It's just like eighth grade when there was a little boy that was smoking cigarettes and getting in trouble and doing bad stuff, and you would see the bad stuff happening, and you sometimes maybe didn't say anything because you didn't want people to make fun of you or kick you out of the cool crowd, or you got a chance to sit and eat lunch with the popular kids, and so you're going to let everything go. Everybody does that. um I mentioned the time that I did, well, that I was on that Stephen A. Smith show a long time ago, and with Method Man, and Method Man said something ignorant, and I just kind of laughed along, and my father called my father, like my dad was like that's bullshit. Like, why are you agreeing with something that's stupid? He said, never go along with ignorance, never co-sign on ignorance. And so maybe I think this is something to think about, right? Because the people that got in trouble with Diddy, the people that were most likely to be victimized, in my view, were the people who were likely going to be easily manipulated by his wealth and status, which gave him a certain type of authority, which meant everything goes. The people that were able to avoid the victimization in many cases were the ones who had a code of ethics and morals that led them to say, I don't care how much money you're going to offer me, I'm not going in that room, I'm not participating. Or Denzel, when Denzel Washington would talk about the Hollywood parties, and he'd say, you got to leave before the devil gets there, right? Or maybe somebody who has financial enough economic independence to be able to walk away and say, I don't need this. I'm gonna still be okay. I'll figure out another way to get what I want. And this is a big deal in entertainment. I knew a young lady who was trying to be the next Taraji P. Henson, and she admired Taraji and Halle Berry and all that, and met this guy. He happened to be a Jewish guy, and he impressed the hell out of her. He took her to all the award shows and showered her with money and gifts, and put famous people on the phone, and then when right before they're about to sign the contract, he pulls out his penis and just says, "Hey, you take care of me, I'll take care of you." And that required her to make a hard decision. And so this is one of the reasons why Black people especially have to understand and train children on how to be willing to do the work required to develop an independent base of power. You don't have to have enough power to conquer the world or to exploit people, but at least enough power where you've got a home base. Because if you've always got a home base, you always have a place where you know you can go and still be safe. This is why the strong Black fathers matter, because the little girl who knows that my daddy's always going to have me, even if this raggedy Negro does not, can walk away from the relationship and go, and her daddy will pick her up anywhere in town that she needs a pickup. This is why wealth matters. An economically independent young person that gets into a bad situation where somebody's asking them to do something stupid over money can say, that's okay. I've got 50,000 in my stock portfolio that my parents helped me build, and it's when I was a kid, so I'm still going to be all right. Do you understand? So power doesn't mean the ability to control and manipulate others. Power at least means that you have the ability to manage and control yourself. I'm not telling you to go get enough power to conquer the world. I just want you to have enough power to hold it down in the places that matter to you. Do you understand what I'm saying? There are some things in your life that should never be for sale. And there are too many of our people out there willing to sell anything and everything to the highest bidder because they don't know who they are, and they ain't got nowhere to go, and they have nothing else they can lean back on. They don't have a plan B, plan C, and plan D. If plan A don't work, they're done. So they sacrifice everything for plan A. The worst advice I ever heard from a Hollywood person, I don't remember who it was, but he said something on the show where he said you should never have a plan B because you want to be in a situation where you have to make your plan A work no matter what. And I said, no, I don't want to be like that. I want to hustle for my plan A. I'm going to go hard for my plan A, but I want to have standards and parameters within which I'm going to operate. I don't want to be an anything goes type of person where you can bend me over and do whatever you want to do to me to give me access to my dream. The person who controls your only and most exclusive access to your dream, you better damn sure make sure you can trust that person because they have the power to destroy you. I mean, think about this. Diddy allegedly, according to these documentaries, was drugging people and giving them STDs. Is that really the price you're willing to pay to get your album out? Because did nobody ever teach you how to distribute your own product? Nobody taught you how to develop a business model. Nobody even taught you how to sell records at the back of your trunk like Master P. Like you ain't got no other plan B. Your only plan is to do what this man's telling you to do. And this man, he knows this. He's got you. You know he's got you. So the devil is gonna decide whether you're gonna have a good life or a bad life. That's a terrible place to be. That's terrible. And that's the thing that bothers me the most about the Diddy thing is that that man was disturbed. But that man was, it seemed like to me possibly he was drunk with power. He's like, oh my God, these people, they'll do whatever I tell them to do because they are so hypnotized by this dream of being a rap star and they have no understanding of contracts. And that's another area I'm going to hit on my next section when I hit the no Diddy topic again is what they call information asymmetry. He's like, I know the music industry. They know nothing. All they want to do is be on stage. They ain't gonna read the contract. They don't know nothing about how these deals work. They don't know. They have no capital base. We got all the power, Clive. So what do you want me to do? So this is a problem. This might be what I might call financially demonic. This is an example of money used in its worst possible case, in its worst possible way, to manipulate and manage and control people in a way that leads them to do things that they would normally do. So there you go. That's my 2 cents. I hope that that's helpful. I hope that somebody gained from this. And I would encourage you, if you got kids or grandkids, talk to them about this. Maybe if you have a young person you mentor, share this video with them because the world capitalism is very brutal. Capitalism isn't your friend. It's not going to be nice to you if you're not prepared. So preparation really becomes the key to success. All right. So thank you for listening. It was great to see everybody. And again, if you go to drboycebooks.com, you can get autographed copies of my book, The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power. You can get a Black Wealth Calendar. You can go to blackwealthcalendar.com if you want to get the 2026 Black Wealth Calendars. We have a few more left, so feel free to go take a look at that. Also, don't forget the All Black National Convention is going to happen the weekend of October 16th. I hope everybody will try to come out. It's going to be that one. I mean, in an age of AI and everything's digital, sometimes seeing a human being hugging, kissing, touching other people really makes a big difference and being in the room with other people. So the All Black National Convention is our chance to be human beings, right? So and it's built for the whole family. We don't in the kids track they can't take care of like a newborn baby, but if your child is say I want to say 4 would be the youngest age that they could watch your child and keep them safe. Below that it's a little more complex, but everything else we got stuff for every single age group, and you can find your people there. So you can feel free to go to allblacknationalconvention.com. That's allblacknationalconvention.com if you'd like to join us. God bless you. Have a great day, everybody.